Welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com. And if you're watching us on our YouTube channel, that is called Tar Heel Illustrated. I'm THI publisher Andrew Jones. He is THI staff writer and analyst, football analyst, Brandon Peay. We are here to continue our series looking ahead at North Carolina's football season. We are jam-packing almost daily podcast discussions about each of Carolina's different position groups. As a reminder, we're getting these all in before they start camp. Players report August 1st, first practice August 2nd, the opener September 2nd, and Charlotte against South Carolina. Tar Heels have a tough first four games. They come home, play App State, Minnesota, which is a good team out of the Big Ten, and then they go to Pitt before an open date. So a month into the season, we're going to know an awful lot about Mack Brown's fifth team in part two of his tenure at North Carolina. Today's discussion is going to be about the tight ends, but before we get into Bryson Nesbitt and Kamara Morales and John Copenhaver, a quick reminder, in case you've been thinking about joining THI, you know about our 833 pitch. Jacob talks about it all the time. Just $8.33 a month for a premium subscription, 1-year premium subscription to THI. What do you get access to? All of our content, everything that we do. Literally everything. And we do a ton of stuff that is premium content, all columns, all perspective, analysis. David Sisk just crushes it on the basketball player analysis stuff. He's so good at that stuff because he was a college coach, an AAU coach, long-time high school coach. Of course he's going to be good at it. He's damn good at it. We do a lot of stuff on the football side, a lot of the inside information about the program, well-sourced intel. Legitimately well-sourced intel all over the boards that we post. We have a couple spots where we put little nuggets of intel every few days. And then, of course, with the recruiting stuff, Dina's exceptionally well connected. She knows what's going on. But the best part, and the reason I say this is the best part, because this is the part that a lot of people gravitate to and just hang out. And that's our message boards. They're not your typical crazy message board where people are slinging mud at each other and calling names and arguing over trivial crap. You're not going to go to our boards and find a bunch of political talk, sweep into and derail a good conversation about sports. It is Carolina football, Carolina basketball, and recruiting all the time on those boards. We don't allow anything else in there. So if you're one of those guys that has a hard time finding someone to talk Tar Heels with, because the dudes at your office that are fans are casual fans, the guy that you work out with who wears the Carolina shirt has no idea who Connor Harrell is. You need to go to our boards. You need to make that a part of your regular community, Carolina community experience, and you won't regret it. It's just $8.33 a month, guys. That's the price it was when I took over this site on August 1st, 2014, and it's still the price. Same price. We have not raised the price. So come on over and jump into the fray and be a part of our community. So, Brandon, the tight ends, this is a strength. I think it's funny. I said this when we did the running back one, where there's all these different college football Twitter handles and stuff that tweet stuff out. And I saw one where it said, what is the strongest position group in North Carolina's football team? It said running back. I thought, yeah, okay, it's deep, but is it the strongest? I think when you have three tight ends who will be in NFL camps and that are also experienced and have proven that they can make plays at the college level and are different and are not just hand on the ground next to the tackle tight ends. They can split out. Two of them, one of them in particular, could line up in slot even. I think that means you've got a damn good tight end room. And I would argue North Carolina has as good a tight end room as there is in college football. I know Georgia's is great, but I think Carolina's got a really good one too. So your thoughts on the room that comprises Bryson Nesbitt, Kamara Morales, and John Copenhaver. We're going to leave it to those three because they're the ones that are going to be on the field unless there's a rash of injuries.
Yeah, I remember a few years ago, one of the questions to Mack Brown in the offseason were, are you going to use your tight ends more? I believe, who was the tight end coach? The first tight end coach? It was
John Lilly. John Lilly left. And now they have Freddie Kitchens, who, by the way, was the head coach of the Cleveland Browns a couple of years ago. Go ahead.
Yeah, I remember the tight ends being used was like a point of concern in the offseason, and Mack Brown said they were going to use them more. They got Bryson Nesbitt in as a recruit, but I kind of thought it was just coach speak because, every offseason, oh, we're going to run the ball more, we're going to do this more. But at the end of the day, you are who you are. Whatever you did last year, you're gonna revert back to it. But they did implement the tight ends a lot more. They are a lot. I think, to Phil Longo's credit, I think he was very creative in how he used all three of them at the same time, creating mismatches, specifically with Bryson Nesbitt going down the middle. That's a really hard matchup for. Who guards that? The linebacker? Oh, he's too slow. The safety, So having three guys who can like immediately flip the field for you at tight end, that's not even counting the guys you have at receiver. That's just such a weapon that most teams just don't have that, because it's hard to find a guy that's big enough to block along the offensive lineman, but athletic enough to run with it's hard those guys just don't exist. Like they're very hard to find, and North Carolina's lucky enough to have three of them in one room.
Yeah, and you brought up blocking, so I'm going to go to blocking for a minute. That's a part of the tight end position a lot of people don't think much about, but you have to be able to block down.
Yeah.
And when you think about Carolina's run game and struggle sometimes running the ball in short yard situations, and sometimes in pass protection, when an offensive line's struggling, nobody has fullbacks anymore. Nobody leaves a fullback back there to help in pass protection. So a tight end has to. Sometimes the tight end may drop a little bit, or he helps with the tackle. You line him up on the side where a tackle's struggling that night against somebody and help him out a little bit. It takes away from your passing game because he doesn't release right away. He engages before he releases. Sometimes he has to continue engaging and never does release. This group has made it a point of emphasis this offseason to become better at blocking down. And with the improvement in pass protection that they expect to have, if they can block and release or just release right away, it opens up the passing game so much more. But I want to emphasize the blocking part because Kamari talked about it quite a bit, and John Copenhaver talked to us in the spring about, look, we've got to block down better. We've got to be more physical. We've got to explode off the ball, explode lower, and block and treat it, our blocking assignments, like an offensive tackle, but also it's the blocking downfield. If your running back gets to the second level, the best way for a running back to get to the third level, or if he gets to the third level to score, is if you're blocking downfield. The tight ends often are assigned in certain run plays blocking linebackers. Get that linebacker, engage enough so the running back, if he gets to the second level, then he becomes a third level guy on that play. So that has been a major point of emphasis because the other stuff that you said, Bryson Nesbitt down the middle, look at the touchdown catch at App State last year at the end of the first half. That's the NFL season. Those little tweets I'm talking about, everybody's putting out their top NFL potential guys in college football this year, the draft next year. Nesbitt's on that list for tight ends all the time. Not Morales, who has a lot more experience and has been highly successful the last couple of years. I think a lot of people see Copenhaver as a sneaky NFL guy because of his size, because he can block. And if you see the way they use him when they go 12 personnel and even 13 personnel in short yardage situations or inside the 10, Copenhaver has the ability to do that, which NFL teams love. And they do use a lot of 12 personnel and 13 personnel. And you're right, I credit Phil Longo for making some tweaks there. So I asked Chip Lindsey in the spring about 12 and 13 personnel. And I think it's something that he probably may have to buy more into. And the more you see those guys out there, I think the more that he will. So when it came up the second time we talked to him toward the end of spring, it seemed like he was a little bit, we got to use what we got to use. You got those three guys. And if one of them, Morales is a touchdown machine. Nesbitt can run any route. He can line up and slot for you. And then you got Copenhaver. He could be your block and release guy, and he could catch the ball and turn up field, as we've seen, as we saw a few times last year. I love the multiplicity that they can run with these tight ends because they're each different, but they all can be very, very effective. Copenhaver didn't score a touchdown last year, which is a surprise. He only had 15 receptions, but man, a lot of them were big. Think of his 15 receptions, 13 of them got him first downs. Yeah. So I would expect more this year. I just think that the level that these guys play to, especially Brandon, with the blocking, improved blocking, which will ultimately make them NFL players if they are to be NFL players, I think that's what people should look for. And I know we're very high on this offense. And we should be very high on this offense because from all the skill guys out, it's very, very talented. This group, to me, is awfully impressive. I'm really excited to see what they do and how they're used.
I agree with you with pretty much everything you said. John Copenhaver was the third. Oftentimes, if you put all the skill positions out there, he was often the last option. So he might have benefited from that being the least. Nobody thinks he's going to get the ball. Everybody thinks he's just out there to block. But what you mentioned about the blocking is, I like that, because if you think about it, Bryson Nesbitt, if you look at Bryson Nesbitt and Kamari Morales, there's no reason why Bryson Nesbitt shouldn't be the head in that room getting all the reps. But when you look at how important blocking is, Kamari Morales at this point in their career, he's just a much better blocker because he's more used to doing it. He's older, he's stronger,
bigger, thicker.
Yeah, so that gets him on the field. So the highlight plays are nice, but what gets you on the field and what keeps you on the field is being able to block, open up holes for the running back, because that's things that don't get a lot of recognition, especially for a tight end. Nobody cares about good blocking tight ends, but I think as Bryson Nesbitt,
coaches do.
Yeah, coaches do, of course.
Coaches do, and so do running backs and quarterbacks. Quarterbacks love good blocking tight ends, especially ones that can block and then release well.
Yeah, well, the casual fan only cares about the guys who's catching the touchdown. But I think you're trying to mention it's a very important thing, and it's how they if you're a casual fan and you're watching, you're thinking, why isn't Bryson Nesbitt getting more reps than Kamari Morales? I would venture to say that's why, because of the difference in the blocking level. So I think once Bryson Nesbitt catches up with John Copenhaver and Kamari Morales as blocking, and I know they said they need to get better as a collective. I think Bryson Nesbitt particularly could be, I know, a first-round draft pick maybe. Like, I think he has all the tools, and so I think it's a good point that you bring up, because most people don't really talk about the blocking aspect when it comes to tight ends. But when it comes to Carolina's tight ends, that's what they need to improve on to be elite. If they do that, I don't really see anything else they need to improve on.
Yeah, not a lot of tight ends are first-round guys, but I know what you're saying. There's a Michael Myers and Brock Bowers out there, and what is something common to both Mayer and Bowers? They go both block down.
Yeah,
and they release. I mean, Mayer's, we saw him in person a couple times the last few years. He's incredible at blocking down and releasing.
Yep.
And running the right route and having great balance and having good hands and turning the nose upfield. It's so important. Nesbitt, to his credit, did get better during the season last year blocking, and it's been a point of emphasis for the group. And he understands, he's keenly aware of what's in front of him, what he could attain by checking a few more boxes at that position. And I think in that room, it's pushed. So you might be the highlight reel guy, but in that room, when something is emphasized so much, and maybe Copenhaver's getting a lot of snaps more than people realize because he's doing those things, that's going to elevate everybody else. I think those guys all make each other better. They're all different. They're very different. And I kind of like all three being on the field at times. And especially last year, I thought they should have used more of that last year, especially when they started to tighten the lane, the passing lane, if you will, to Josh Downs. I thought that they didn't use the tight ends enough as the season went on this year. It'll be interesting to see how Chip Lindsey uses them, because he wants to throw to the running backs too. I mean, you can only throw one ball a snap. You're going to get 72, 75 snaps a game. There are going to be fewer snaps this year than a year ago because of some of the changes in the rules. So how often can you throw to those guys? I know that it's not so much a matter of making them happy, perhaps, but you want to utilize. If you think about what's at their disposal, and this is our fourth discussion. So we've already done quarterback, we've already done running back, we've already done wide receiver. Now we're doing tight end. We have spoken ad nauseum about all the options that they have. Drake has just got dudes around him galore. Now we're going to do the offensive line podcast discussion next. That might be a little bit of a different conversation, and it's obviously vitally important to everything else. But if they're at least solid and consistently solid, maybe a little bit above solid, there's a lot of weapons there to use. Some guys are just not going to get that many touches from week to week. It'll depend. Some guys can be used more situationally. The thing I love about these tight ends, if Lindsey is not a 12 and 13 personnel guy that much in the end, he can use them situationally. And if he says, well, I need a guy like Nesbitt right now against this defense, he's got Nesbitt. If he's like, I need a guy like Morales against this defense, that thick dude who'll go over the middle, doesn't care how many people are going to hit him, he's still going to catch the ball. And if that goal line's nearby, he's going to get in there. or the guy like Copenhagen, who is going to block down, and release at the right time and get you the first down. He's got those guys in that room. And that's what's so impressive about that group. And I think that when you have someone like Drake with his length, with his vision, and how he sees things happening as they're happening, even before they happen, he'll hit those guys when they're open. I love this room. There's a lot to love about this team's offense, but this room, as much as the wide receiver room intrigues me, I think that this is as high-end an offensive room as this team has had, this program's had in a while. And running back a couple of years ago, yeah, pretty good, right? I think this group is comparable in a lot of ways for what they're supposed to do, for what they can do. They're not going to rack up Javonte Michael numbers as tight ends, obviously, but I think they can be exceptionally effective every week.
The numbers certainly won't be there because of the position. As you said, it's just so many other mouths that need to be fed. But when the opposing coaches are planning for North Carolina, those three guys will be at the top of the scouting report for sure. That's
going to be one of those deals where every DC is going to look down with his hand on his forehead like, well, what do we do with these guys?
Yeah.
Because even if they don't catch many passes, the fact that you have to be uber focused on them, it's going to make them. Remember what I said in the last discussion about the offense in basketball, when you can spread it out and you force defenses to honor all five guys on the court, how much easier it makes everything. I think that's the narrative right now, or the theme of this offense with the skill groups. They all have to be honored, especially the ones that catch passes. The ones that run routes and catch passes, they've got to be honored. So that should make for a very, very entertaining offense, and one in which Drake May could just almost video game like. They had the potential to be that if the guys up front do their job, and we'll talk about them next.
Yeah, they showed flashes of that last season. It just at one point of the season just kind of stopped, and then so if they can just keep that going for the whole season, we'll see what the results are.
Absolutely. Anything else in the tight ends?
No, I have nothing else. I don't want to just make up something.
I hear you. Okay, well, how about this? Very quickly, we've done quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end. Really quickly, thoughts on the skill guys on offense?
I think North Carolina is always among the best ACC programs when it comes to skill positions. I think their biggest detriment is always in the trenches, and like you said, we'll talk about that later. But I think this group is just as good. They're good. They're just as good as any other group in the ACC, and if everything comes along in the trenches, this group will help lead North Carolina to where they want to go.
I'll say this about the offensive skill guys: they have the offensive skill, talent, much of it proven, to be a double-digit win team.
For sure.
The question, and we'll dive into it with the next one, do they have the offensive line to be a double-digit win team? So make sure you come back, check out our fifth discussion in this series as we build toward the start of the football season. Remember, guys, $8.33 a month. Come hang out. Hang out with people who know what you know and talk about what you talk about. Maybe they have different points of view, but that's great. And also, you get access to all of our intel. We drop so many intel bombs on the board, it's not even funny. And you will never hear those intel bombs on these podcasts. You won't hear them on the Daily Drops with Jacob, and you won't see them on the free content that we run on the front page. That's what being a premium subscriber gets you. And it's stuff that you don't find pretty much anywhere else. Anyway, he's Brandon. I'm AJ. Go sign up. Come back for our next discussion. And if you haven't seen the first three, go watch them before the next one. Make sure you watch them today. You can find them right there on our YouTube channel. You can find all our daily drops. You can find everything there that we do. Thanks for hanging out with us, guys.
Thanks for watching.